perhaps it's not perhaps the most ethical or right way to engage with wildlife filmmaking, just for the pure sensation of it. Let me not have any illusions about this, and I'm going to educate you, but wildlife filmmaking is an extremely hard business. It is a tough business. There's a lot of people out there that are doing it, and very often, in order to get a slice of the pie or to cut it into the industry, people will cross that ethical line. Now, I must tell you that there are a code of ethics that have been published for wildlife filmmaking, but like hunting, which was the topic we discussed last night, those lines are very often blurred and are covered up with the excuse that it is done for an environmental reason. I just want to go back to some of your quotes. Patty reckons that it is pure and simple interference with nature. Penzendorfu says, just people corking into zoo cages because they think they are friendly and cuddly, and that's a very good point. Afrimu says, also interfering with the animal's natural behavior. I don't disagree with any of you. When I watch that clip, I feel filled with conflict, because on one hand, I know how it feels to be around an African lion. They are one of the most magnificent and intimidating animals that you could possibly encounter. And here's this guy lying in the grass with them, pretending like everything's fine. But at the same time, I do wonder if it is absolutely necessary to go to those types of steps to get a wildlife conservation message across, as opposed to perhaps blunting that with the sensationalism factor. Just to refer back to some of my notes, people like seeing action. Again, a lot of feedback. I think this one came from Lisa Selby again, but basically it's all about limited budgets. It's all about timing. Wildlife filmmaking is not an easy business, because unlike working with human actors, you cannot tell the animals what to do. The animals do what they do, and it's purely the luck of the draw with regards to whether you are there or not to capture the action. And so this is what stems this type of interaction, I think. Also, the bar has been put so high. How do international broadcast networks pip each other at the post? And the answer, of course, lies in the fact that they need to have the biggest, the hottest, the most sensational, and in this particular case, perhaps the most controversial film out there. Now, people like seeing action, especially with people involved. There was a time when wildlife filmmaking never ever featured people at all, and that has done a radical 180-degree shift. Patrick and I were at a wildlife filmmakers conference earlier this year, as were Graham and Emily, and one of the topics that were debated was, what does the audience want? One of the viewers today in the discussions with me raised the question of, is this type of thing happening because viewers are demanding it, or are viewers simply being spoon-fed what the broadcasters want? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip back to our fantastic director Pete in the control room, and I'm going to ask him to roll another clip for you. And whilst this clip is rolling, I would like you to compare it to the Mad Mike and Mark clip. And I'll be raising some questions with regards to how you perceive those two clips directly thereafter. So, Pete, if you could roll the shark water clip, please.
Arizona. Any new animal to evolve in the ocean for the last 400 million years has been shaped by their predators, the sharks, giving rise to schooling behavior, camouflage, speed, size, and communication. They control the populations below them, eliminating species that were easy prey and creating...
Oh, I tell you what, it's a fascinating new documentary making the rounds of the film festivals and doing very well. It's called Shark Water. And if you feel like you've seen everything there is to see about sharks, this one may be a little bit different, because while a lot of shark documentaries tend to do the trying to frighten you, scare you, make you paranoid about going into the ocean, this one offers a little bit more of a sympathetic view toward the shark. And the cinematographer, biologist Rob Stewart, is joining us this morning. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning.
Why the sympathetic view of a shark?
Well, I realized that shark populations were being wiped out all over the world. Shark populations had dropped 90% in the last 30 years alone. And nobody knew and nobody cared, largely because everyone was afraid of sharks. And I was a wildlife photographer at the time, and I spent 200 days a year underwater with sharks, and I never had a problem. And the reality with sharks is so totally different that I figured if I could make a movie that gave people a different impression of sharks, then maybe they'd want to fight for their protection like they were fighting for pandas and elephants and bears.
What are you trying to tell us about sharks that we don't know? What's your motivation, I guess?
Well, the reality is sharks are not predators of people. They don't eat human beings. If they did, the oceans would be a really dangerous place, and people would be getting eaten every day. The reality, once in a while, a shark bites a human being, realizes it made a mistake, and lets go. And that's the reality. And the most important thing people should know is that 70% of the oxygen we breathe comes from life in the oceans that sits below sharks in the food chain. And that same life also converts carbon dioxide, or the global warming gas, to oxygen. And it's the biggest consumer we have on the planet. So sharks are important not just for the oceans, but for all of life on Earth.
One of the notes that I was reading in the material you sent us was that there are some shark industry forces that tried to stop you from getting this film made and getting it shown in theaters. Who are these pro-sharking forces that were such a force against this film?
There's a huge demand for shark fins, actually, for shark fin soup in Asia. And a single pound of shark fin can be worth $400 US. And because of that, there's, a $1 billion industry out there finning sharks. And what they do is they pull sharks out of the water, cut off their fins, and throw the rest of the body back into the ocean. And that wastes 95% of the animal, just like killing an elephant for ivory or a rhinoceros for its horns. And when we were filming Sharkwater, we were exposing corruption between governments that was allowing illegal fishing and exposing this industry to the world so that people would take notice and fight for their protection.
I love that clip. I think it's illustrating a point that I now want to raise to you, the viewer, because between the Mad Mike and Sharkwater clips, both of those clips are ultimately designed not only for entertainment factors, but also to include the sort of the more conservation-orientated message. Because when you watch the full clip of Mad Mike, they give a lot of feedback with regards to the lion's behavior. Now, in Sharkwater, you see the director swimming with the sharks, holding the sharks, touching the sharks, interacting with the sharks. Is Sharkwater different to Mad Mike? Are the interactions that the filmmakers are having with the animals different, or are they the same? If they are different, why? Is it because perhaps we're engaging with fluffy mammals such as the lion as opposed to a cold-blooded fish in the shark? I find this point of comparison fascinating. Sharkwater obviously has a deeper ongoing conservation message, but the interaction with the wildlife is still the core issue of tonight's debate. Viewers, please let me know what you think about that. I would like to hear from you, because I think it's one of those things where it either sits well with an individual or it doesn't. Valerie B. They didn't give themselves the stereotypes of being man-eating killers. Jaws did that. Jaws did me in for swimming in the ocean, says, is it Debbie? I'm so sorry, the name got cut off. The point is that it's not about the sharks, it's about a conservation message, and it's about how people are interacting with the wildlife within those particular environments. I would also quickly like to go to a clip. Kathy says, how about Brady Barr from National Geographic, who put on the hippo suit to get up close and personal with hippos? And Nat Geo isn't some run-of-the-mill outfit either. They are usually very classy. Kathy, thank you so much for sending us in the link for that clip. I think Pete's taken a brief cut out of that. So Pete, if we could cut to that clip very, very briefly, please.
But as I move in, he lets me know I am not welcome on his turf. He's looking right at me. Like my decoy, hippo bodies.
A few seconds, because we have time constraints tonight and a lot of ground to cover. That clip raises the same questions as the previous two. That one was also in the name of science, however, because Brady Barr needed to collect a sweat sample from a hippo, and I think you'll all agree